you brought up an example of someone reflecting something back to you, right? Or making you feel a certain way. So the question is, okay, wow, this person's reflecting or doing something for me and I'm feeling a certain way. So should I remove myself from the situation because I have unpleasant feelings or because it's making me feel a certain way that maybe I prefer not to? Or should I engage further and start to question? Because that really is where I want to bring spirituality into these conversations. Totally. It's going to get to, yeah, I know what you mean. I know exactly what you mean. I mean, it's going to get to a point where come in, it's superficial, but also like, I kind of like that it's raw. You know, there's so many. I was just listening to another podcast the other day. It was a friend sent it to me, like telepathy tapes. Really interesting concept, actually. But this woman literally finds like children from all over the country and world that like can communicate telepathically, and it's really neat. If you guys haven't listened to that, I highly recommend. But I guess my point is for that, it's just, it felt very polished, which I like. I do like the polished ones, and I think we should get polished at some point, relatively. Yeah. But I also like that this is just like, hey, this is just two people talking, and ideally we'll have people on, and we will, and I already kind of have, and we will in the future, and just talk about stuff. But this is going to be real stuff. This is going to be like, hey, this is happening for us. This is what's coming up. You and I have both been in tremendous amounts of therapy. For therapy for better for life. Let's call it life. And we've tried a bunch of things. I think what would be cool, just giving examples of kind of what we work through, and I can't wait to have other people on too, talking about what they do. That's my favorite part about this. Like, you know, having people on being like, hey, how do you, like, what's your healing journey look like? And beyond just healing, like, what is your creative superpower? You know, what have you done? And I think that's a story with so many of us, right? Like, we come from a situation of, I don't know about pain. I guess pain is maybe the right word for it, but we come from a situation of struggle, strife, and then we use that to convert and transmute into one of our greatest attributes, which is like the hero's journey. That's like Joseph Campbell's story. He did this crazy thing. This was, I think, in the 80s or 90s, a long time ago, but he like researched all these mythological stories, and he came across with one pattern, which was the hero's journey. So I highly recommend if you haven't read that book or looked into him. But yeah, that's what I want this space to be. I want the space to be super raw, super authentic. They're going to witness a lot of emotions, a lot of conversations with people working through different healing modalities and their journeys. And I just want it to be open and free. I think that's pretty unique nowadays, right? Like, yeah. Like I said, I just think there's so many things that are polished out there. I'm totally cool if this is unpolished. I'm totally cool if there's way too much light on my face. I'm totally cool with the fact that we can't get this lightsaber to work. We are still trying to figure out the whole microphone thing, and it's working now.
I think so. Yeah, let's hope.
Yeah, let's hope. But it's also not like the finalized solution. But this is the beauty in it. You know, this is the beauty in it, because I think we really do. We get in our own way so many times. We like want it to be perfect. We want it to be right, you know, before we share something, and it just comes out of a felt sense of like needing to be safe and needing to be seen. And we do so much pent up work the irony is we do so much pent up work in our heads before we even get to the real situation and reality. And I think that's my journey in life. And that's definitely my goal right now, is to do that for myself, as I have been, and getting to a place that has really released me from that quote unquote, you know, internal prison, and to help other people do that, to release themselves. And you've been on that journey too. You have a little bit of a different path, because yours is more, let's call it like IFS related.
Yeah, maybe we should talk about the differences in our approaches.
Yeah, go for it.
So for me, what's present is that I literally think a lot of people, if not most people, are trying to avoid pain. They're trying to avoid feeling pain, which is understandable, because pain
pain
hurts,
sucks.
you know. And so people are trying to avoid pain, and so they naturally gravitate towards any practice or any like action that they can take that will go in the direction of feeling good. Feeling good is important. We all want to feel good, but we can't skip a step. Like we can't just fill our lives with practices like, meditation, yoga, breath work, all of those, sound baths and stuff. That's not healing. It is healing to do so, but it's not actually healing your it's not healing like,
Yeah.
okay, it's not healing you out of like patterns or out
Yeah.
of behaviors or beliefs.
Yeah. You feel like it's like bypassing in some
Yeah,
way.
yeah. I
Yeah.
feel like it needs to be everything, but um, there are steps. Like the first step is becoming aware. Okay, now I'm aware. I have this pattern. I do this. I feel that. Okay, the next step would be to walk with those feelings, not run away from them. Because saying I'm having negative thoughts and then saying, okay, let me just switch those to positive thoughts. Oh, that's not me, it's my ego. It's like, no, it is you. It's coming from you. You're the master of your thoughts, yes, but the feelings that you're feeling are a part of who you are. So if you feel sad, I mean, feel it. If you have parts that don't want to feel it, understandable. If you don't want to feel sad, I get it. But you can't skip feeling sad. For example, I can go through a breakup and be devastated and cry for 2 days. Okay, I felt it for 2 days, right? And then the next step for me would be to get hyper focused on work or go to the gym every day or become obsessed about this little thing about me that I want to change.
Right.
And like, I feel like grief and sadness in general comes in waves. So knowing yourself and having compassion to yourself, like when you feel sad, when something bad happens,
Right.
instead of just trying to find a reason why it's happening to you and that it's a good reason. Oh, it's happening so I can learn a lesson here or whatever. Like, yeah, that's important, but it's also important to just kind of stop and sit with what is happening right now and how it makes you feel. If it's sadness, disappointment, be with it.
Yeah, I
It
do
makes
think we get
sense.
lost in that a little bit too, right? Because there's so much communication out there, like that. The emotion is the signal and communicate, and it is. I really do respect that. Like, our emotions are our bodies, and it's storing all this historical data that's trying to communicate to us. And one of the greatest flips that I ever made in my life, thanks to Teal Swan for this, the concept of like I was so stuck in this whole self-sabotage story that I'm working against myself. Obviously, it's a bit counterintuitive sometimes, but they're just trying to keep me safe. So back to your point about us not wanting to feel pain, we've created all these internal systems and parts of us and coping mechanisms that come out in the 3D world in order to prevent that pain. And I think so many people are trying to get around that pain, like you're saying, instead of like digging into it, not just saying, what are you trying to communicate so that I can get past you? It's more of like, okay, if I can sit, love that pain, understand it, and not like try to get rid of it, then the goal is ultimately to not feel as much pain though, right? In the future.
Yeah, and what I see happens in therapy for people, for myself, is that the pain comes up and then there's like a protector or like a mechanism to stop you from crying, for example, because a part of you really believes that if you're going to cry, like you're not going to be able to hold down the doors.
Right.
Like once you give it a little bit of opening, then you're going to die. Like that's the core belief that's like inside of us, right? Like, no, if I allow myself to feel even just a little bit, it's going to flood me and I'm going to die, literally. And what I think what the secret is really understanding that it's like riding waves. You have sadness, it overwhelms you, you cry, you just hysterically cry, okay, worst case scenario, but after you cry, there is a release. Like, first of all, it's an act of self love to let yourself express what you feel, and then you express it, and then everything calms down. Like, your system kind of like shifts out of it. And we forget that after feeling a lot of pain, you actually regulate yourself back. And it's okay to feel that pain or cry or be dramatic about something, like to feel.
I really like that. So do you think though, I mean, ultimately the point is to get out of that stressed state, right? Like out of the pain, like into goodness. Would you argue like that's the point? Like, I think a lot of people kind of struggle with that. If you're saying riding the wave and loving and accepting where you're currently at and sitting with that, But like in the back of your head, you have, okay, well, yes, I'm riding the wave, but I can't wait to get out of it. Do you feel like that's a bit counter, or it's hard to have both those goals at the same time?
You can't hold the pain on one hand and then also on the other hand want to get out of it. You will have a part of you that wants to do it just to get it done, but your system will know. It will be a sense, a felt sense.
Yeah.
You will know, like when you approach yourself, where are you coming from? And
Right.
you should always check, okay, I'm doing this out of like understanding that this is what I need right now, and it's okay. And people get sad, and it's okay for me to not go to work today or not to go to the gym and just sit here and wallow in pity. Like
Yeah.
that is okay.
Right.
We're human. Like,
but Rachel, I've got a question.
yeah.
Totally get it. And it's super important to be in touch with your emotions and to let things come up and to accept them and to love them, because that's really all those parts are asking for, some love and acceptance for you to hear them. That's why they're screaming louder and louder. But again, isn't the point to get to a place where you just feel good? Isn't that what life is about? You just can create these mechanisms, the modalities you mentioned, the yoga, the meditation. Don't we do all of those things to get to a place to just feel good? Isn't that the goal, to feel good most, if not all the time?
I feel like, okay, let's say your practice is to do yoga, meditation. Let's say your practice is to do a meditation. You feel great, and then you leave the location, and you stay with yourself. You make dinner, you sit down with yourself, and then boom, your loneliness starts creeping in, or some other emotion. So eventually the feel good state is not a place you can stay in for a long time, right? Because we have a lot of feelings, not just feel good. So I just see it as like, I think that the goal in general, the top line goal, is to feel good with yourself, not feeling good or feeling anything actually, and just understanding that, okay, it makes sense for me to feel lonely. I am pretty lonely, or I have needs that are not met, and then go to a movie with a friend and be like, wow, I feel amazing. I feel so connected right now, and I feel like I'm not lonely anymore. And it's like, it's not a one state that you need to try and get to and stay there all the time, because we're not just going to be fine, okay, happy all the time. It's accepting that.
Yeah.
Like, okay, if I can accept and love myself at worst times, then I can feel it 10 times in when it's better.
Yeah, that is such a powerful statement. Like, we're going to have to hammer that over and over again in this podcast, because it's so true. I think we have it backwards. I think you're spot on. But we have this concept of, I should be feeling good all the time. I should be feeling happy. And the irony is, like you said, we're human. We have ups and downs. We have times and situations of feeling lonely or sad or afraid or doubt, whatever the, I guess, lower vibrational frequencies are, and some of the more unpleasant, quote unquote, emotions. And a goal of ours is to get through those, to get past those, to get to, quote unquote, pleasant emotions. And the irony is that's never going to happen, because we're human and we have lives and we go through these things. However, if we can, like you said, focus in those moments when we're feeling unpleasant or we're feeling an intense emotion, that, let's call it, that we don't want to feel it or we prefer not to feel it. But if we can actually sit with those and feel good about them and feel good about ourselves, that actually, ironically, and contrary to, or I should say counterintuitively, can actually make you feel good all the time. Because if you're able to experience an emotion that's relatively unpleasant and you're able to sit in that and love yourself through it and be okay and good with it, well, then by definition, your entire day can be good if you're able to do that. So that's the key. I was reading, I'm a big fan of this Robert Scheinfeld guy, and he sent a really cool email, and I've been through a couple of his trainings and seminars. Yeah, I think it was an example of what I sent you, where he goes, isn't this true that you sit in, you go to a movie, you're sitting in a movie theater and you're watching a scary, frightening movie, right? And there's like ups and downs, and someone jumps out of a closet and scares whoever's there. And you feel anxious, you feel terror, and then it kind of subsides. But like the whole time you're there, you signed up for the movie. You paid a ticket and popcorn and raisinets if you're smart and have good taste. You did all these things, and you leave the movie and it was a great movie. I had a great time. But you felt anxiety, terror, fear, doubt, like for half the movie, if not more. Yeah. So how does that work? It's a concept of like, we do that unintentionally or unconsciously with movies. What if we did that consciously with our lives?
Well, it's the human experience. Buckle up. This is what it's about. You're not here to be happy. Happy is a state that you can't really cage or like conceptualize into this one thing that and hold on to it all the time. Like we are meant to evolve. We are meant to pursue desires. We are meant to be faced with hardship, right? Because you can either grow from it or it can break you, but you are the master of that. And I had another important thing to say, but I don't remember it.
Oh, we'll come back up. Good thing we have more than one recording session to do coming up soon.
I just feel like, for example, in my situation, it's not my ideal situation. I have a lot going on in life that I wanted to be different. And I do experience loneliness, for example, but I choose to. Like, I choose to be lonely and not be with the wrong people. I choose to have friends I can count on one hand than just have 20 friends that to make me feel, not alone. I already see through myself. I see that, okay, if I become this person's friend out of a place of, okay, I'm lonely, I need people around me, but they're not my, this person is not my people, then I'm not really getting anything and I'm manipulating myself. So I rather sit in my loneliness and I rather sit in despair or whatever, but to feel whole with myself, to feel like I'm following my truth and what feels right for me.
Yeah.
And what is right, even if it doesn't feel right, because it doesn't feel right to sit in loneliness.
Right. That's
but
an example of a feeling signal maybe leading you the wrong way.
Yeah. And I just think that if we all do it, right? I also have things that I do, practices to feel better, but don't just do half the walk. Do all the walk. Do all these practices, but also do deep shadow walk. Go into yourself, understand your feelings, understand what drives you, why you make choices that you later regret. Like, be there for yourself.
Yeah. Wow, there's a lot to unpack there. I feel like we just created like 3 new episodes. The other one, which I think you brought up, which is really interesting, which is what if you're feeling something that's not necessarily leading you to your truth? I think people also get caught up in that. They say, oh, but I'm feeling this way, so I'm going to follow my feelings, right? Like follow my gut, my intuition. And I think actually that's the key. I don't deny that. I don't doubt that. I think, however, people kind of forget sometimes that their feelings are influenced by their thoughts, their minds, their brain, their chemical bodies. So, and we talked about this in the dating scene, but also just in life and anything that comes up. And in my perspective, this could be another episode 3. We've got 3 episodes coming up, but the concept of your thoughts affecting your feelings, affecting your actions and behaviors. So it really kind of works in that order. So I'm curious what you think about that, or we can start with the simulation concept.
This is what comes up for me.
Signing up for the human experience.
Okay, so first of all, how do I know it's my gut feeling and not just a feeling that I'm feeling or a trigger that comes up in the moment or something that a part of me is needing at that moment, right? So I think the most important thing is, first of all, understanding your values. What do you value? What is important to you? For example, I have the value of authenticity and following my truth.
Right.
I have the value of community, safety, and community and safety. And there's another one. So if I do something and I have a gut feeling, then I will sit with myself and try to understand, does this align with my values? Associating with this type of person brings up a lot of stuff for me, and I feel worthless around him, for example. So my gut feeling is telling me, and I don't think it's a good example, actually.
That's okay. That actually makes me think of something else too, because it's interesting when so episode number 4, we got another. This is great. This is what this is for. It's like, as things come up, they just come up. But the fourth concept that now I feel like we could talk about, and it doesn't have to be today, but at some point, which is like, okay, so you brought up an example of someone reflecting something back to you, right? Or making you feel a certain way. So the question is, okay, wow, this person's reflecting or doing something for me and I'm feeling a certain way. So should I remove myself from the situation because I have unpleasant feelings or because it's making me feel a certain way that maybe I prefer not to? Or should I engage further and start to question? Because that really is where I want to bring spirituality into these conversations. And there's different different things we can talk about and different types of spirituality. Like Kabbalah is a big one. I think there's a basic fundamental spirituality concept, which is the one all over Gaia and the one in our Austin conscious community, and which is essentially a sense of oneness, right? That we're all divine souls. We all come into unique fragments of consciousness, into human bodies, and so on and so forth. But we're all connected, and there's an illusion of separation that we're different and not the same, which I love. It's really changed my life, this concept. So if you submit to that theory, because we have to start there. If you're not submitted to that theory, then this next part doesn't make sense. But if you can submit to that theory, then realize like your external world is simply a reflection, a mirror of your internal state of consciousness. If everyone else is simply also a part of you, right? If we all come from the same place, we're all souls in human bodies. Then if I look at Rachel or I look at someone else, they are a part of me and we are the same. And that's, if you want to go back, man, you can get biblical about this stuff. You can get the golden rule, right? Do unto others as they would do unto you. You have so many teachings, not just from Jesus, but from Moses and God. And it's all over the Old and New Testament. This is a lot of the spiritual teachers of the 1900s, Neville Goddard included. Think and Grow Rich. A lot of people love that book. Napoleon Hill, just because probably has to do with money. But so that's a concept of actually being grateful and thankful for this person who's quote unquote pushing your buttons and testing and making you feel a certain way you may not want to feel. And instead of running away from that, saying, oh, you know what? I'm creating a boundary, which is a big word now in this world and community, is that, you know what? I need to remove myself. And there are situations, there are times you say, hey, this is unhealthy for me. This is pushing my boundary. I don't prefer this. I want to remove myself from the situation. So understanding the difference between that and, wow, this is bringing something up in me that I would like to transform. I would like to move through. And that's the Kabbalistic concept of, we have tikkun. We all have things that our souls came here to learn, to grow through, to transform, and being grateful for the situations that challenge you and to view them as learning opportunities. So that's episode number 4.
Yeah, and I agree. And there's a fine line there, I think. And I think for me, it's about if I have a friend and it's triggering me and I'm able to talk to them about how they trigger me and there's walkability, yes, I would probably keep them and walk with them to resolve something. But if it's a person that I know there's no walkability and I know we don't speak the same language, I would probably step down. Like I would probably understand, okay, there is a limitation here, it's not walkable. They're not going to see me the way I want to be seen. And if my wound is not being seen, staying in a place where they don't see me and they cannot see me because of their restrictions will bring me more pain than lessons. And the lesson here is to learn to walk away. It's to detach. It's to be like, I don't want to be where I'm not seen. But if I have a friend that speaks the language, that understands feelings and emotions and does inner work, and I tell him, hey, in my experience, I don't feel seen here, and then I can help that person understand me and see me, then I'm also doing something for myself because I am stepping up for myself, speaking out, and, working on something with someone to further increase connection.
I really like that.
Yeah.
I want to grow the amount of people who look at situations like that. I think I've just always been that way in my life. And okay, episode number 5, we can talk about human design, and I really want to get into some of the more esoteric, ways of really, for me, they're just ways of understanding yourself. And I think that's also the goal of being human. The reason why we're here on this journey is to learn about ourselves. Actually, I should start there. My concept is that we all came from the same place. We're all part of divinity, souls and unique human fragments of consciousness. We're all part of the same thing. And we all came here to learn about ourselves, to grow, to expand. That's the history of the universe, is expansion, constant expansion. You think about our galaxy, the Milky Way, and every galaxy is a spiral. It's literally a spiral, just growing, expanding gas. That's what a solar system is. That's what the sun is. That's what everything is, even the earth. Everything is just growing and spinning and expanding. And that's what we're also meant to do. We are a fragment of the universe. So in that sense, all these are just tools. They're just data. It's information to learn about yourselves. Human design is one, the I Ching, which is a Chinese kind of astrology form. It's been around for thousands of years. It's we have our own astrological system, right? All the 12 planets. And so yes, that's a big part of this. And I think what I would like to see, and I think it's already happening. Honestly, it's already happening because it's happening to me. Like seriously, I mean, my background is not this at all. It's not this world at all. It's certainly not spiritual. I mean, I've got 2 engineering degrees. I worked in tech and 10 plus years. You know, this is a few years going on for me getting into this world. So I hope that it's growing. I think it is, because it is with me. But for people to view these interactions with other people in their lives and their reality as opportunities to transform their quote unquote tikkun in Hebrew, it's a Hebrew word, and their whatever their soul came in with to this life to overcome, that they need to work on, that's just so powerful. You know, it's so powerful because it opens up a sense of gratitude. That's really what it does. It changes your entire perspective on life. It makes you thankful. It makes you grateful. You say, thank you for reflecting that to me, that I'm feeling this when this triggers me. Now I'm feeling a certain way. And now I can work through my tools. I can create systems and methodologies, whatever, to get through and accept and learn to love and accept myself and hold those, whatever's coming up for me, with compassion. And that's really like the goal of life. I mean, I know the goal isn't for me to, and for other people, I think, to come here, generate massive amounts of wealth and run all these businesses and do that. You talk to some super wealthy people, they're some of the most unhappiest people in the world. You talk to some people who have nothing, they're the happiest people in the world. It's like, there's a lot of examples of that across all the different variables of life, right? Like social connections, relationships, money, it's all these things.
Maybe some people's journey is to come here and create wealth.
It could be. You know? Yeah, it could be. Yeah. And your journey is whatever it's meant to be. But I think the point is, whatever that journey is for you, realizing that whatever's coming up for you is an opportunity for you to transform to what you're meant to be, and being grateful for that reflection. Because I don't think a lot of people think that way. So to think that way really transforms your life. Instead of getting upset in traffic, you're sitting in traffic and you're, oh my God, I'm going to be late and I'm super, I had this meeting at 12 and they're going to be so mad at me. And you have all these thoughts rushing through your systems. It creates a sense of anxiety and disappointment and frustration. And now you're stressed. And by the way, there's so much medical research and so much data we have now on what stress does to the body. And now on the potential impact to cancer and to health issues and to just the list goes on and on and on. So what this does, this new way of thinking, takes a situation that could be as troublesome as traffic, and instead it says, oh, I'm sitting in traffic. I'm waiting here. I'm behind all these cars. I'm going to be late to this meeting. What's coming up for me? Oof. Okay. I sense frustration. I sense anxiety. I sense panic. I sense all these things coming up. And then learning to love those things and being thankful for your body that they're coming out. And part of IFS would be identifying the parts that are trying to communicate with you and getting to those exiled parts through the protectors that are blocking these potentially overwhelming senses, and saying, hey, I'm here for you, right? Like I love you. I care for you. And being that adult to your quote unquote inner children, that for me is the most beautiful thing we can do in life. And I think that's my relatively newfound goal. And I think it's just very healthy because it completely alters everything. And you could be stuck in traffic. You can deal with any life situation, and you can deal with anything that's what would realistically some people would call a negative situation, and it could all be positive. But the point is, you could transform every situation in your life from negative to positive. And that's just like, gosh, how powerful is that? So
you brought something up for me, is that I had to go through 2 car accidents and a lot of resistance to just understanding that I need to drive different. And when I get stuck in traffic and it's very frustrating, then I just release the resistance to get there fast. If I see, I have 5 minutes to be there and I'm 15 minutes away, it's time. I can't do nothing about time. So
right.
I'll be like, okay, I'm going to be late.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah. It is. And then,
it sucks, but it is what it is.
Well, it doesn't suck. We can say it doesn't suck, right? You can say like, okay, I'm going to be late and what's the big deal? Right. And then there's a lot of.
But sometimes it is a big deal, and sometimes there's a lot of implications of being late. But what I'm trying to say, I guess, is that I had to go through some journey here to get to a point where I'm driving more relaxed, more in control, more centered, and I'm not putting myself at risk for rushing or trying to prove something on the road. Right. And it's true for life.
Yeah. That's true. Yeah. How much time we got?
What time is it?
I know you got another meeting. I don't know because both of our phones are there. So
The
we found
screen.
something new. Oh, yeah, we have a
What is the
screen.
time
Oh
on the
gosh,
right?
11:36.
We have like
A few
20
minutes.
minutes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, and I think that's something I want to get into with you kind of a bit deeper because we may have differing opinions on that a little bit, because I would argue like, oh, it's okay if you're a little bit late, like it's all about how we view things, really. Like that's what I've come to this too. There's a combination of being there for yourself and making sure that you feel good and feel safe and that whatever's coming up, you're dealing with it and you're addressing it in a loving, compassionate way. And also the way that we talk to ourselves is so critical. And so we say, oh, I'm going to be 5 minutes late. And I think that's why our generation, so many of us have anxiety and all these issues because you plug in an address on your phone. There's so many things we think that we need to do is the point. So you plug in an address on your phone and Apple Maps or Google Maps or Waze or whatever you want to use, and it tells you, okay, you're going to be there in 10 minutes, right? And sometimes it's a game. It's like, oh, 10 minutes, bullshit. I can get there in 5, which is fun. But then we feel, okay, I got to get there in 10, or I committed to this time. And now if I'm 2-3 minutes late, something terrible happened. You can kind of feel that. So part of my work, and I think what would help a lot of people, I know for sure has so far, is the combination of, okay, if I'm stuck in traffic, how is this working in my favor? And this is also a great Kabbalistic component. But how is this is somehow reflecting to me something that I can transform, just kind of like your point with the accidents and kind of now how you're communicating with yourself. And the same thing with being late, same thing with things that have implications that could, to some people, be negative, but somehow that thing is helping you, helping us, helping me.
Okay, but there are two truths here. It's negative and it's helping me. What I'm trying to say is this, me holding the negative stuff,
Right.
I cannot override it with, oh, but it's helping me.
Right.
That's not gonna work. Okay, it might work for.
So here's my question.
It might be like a good way to cope.
Why? What's a negative thing?
Well, we need a better example than
give me an example, like something that you said there are implications to something going wrong.
Let's say the love of my life just broke up with me.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay.
So the question is, how could that be? How could that possibly be a good thing for me?
You can put this on everything. You can say,
totally.
Okay, it wasn't right for me.
Here's my response. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay, it wasn't right for me.
Totally.
The universe is pushing me towards a lesson and to find someone that is right.
And perhaps I needed to work on, right.
That's okay. But my heart is broken cannot be bypassed by there is a bigger reason here.
Correct.
No.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're right about that. And that's where it's never one size fit all. It's not one way. That's why we talked about at the beginning. It's a holistic approach. It's all these things. And it's never, I think what I'm feeling from you right now is resistance to the like invalidation. It's resistant. And I agree. Like we talked about the whole movie situation where you sign up for a movie and you're paying for these experiences of feeling anxiety, terror. It's like, but that's the human experience and that could be beautiful. So and we've had kind of these discussions before, but I'm reiterating, I agree. It feels invalidating to think, oh, I shouldn't feel this way because actually this is a good thing for me.
And there are deep implications. Yeah. So let's say my heart is broken and I go with the coping way, right? Like, okay, there's a reason why the universe has done this. There's something more precise. Something more aligned for me,
okay.
And this and that. So I don't really feel the heartbreak, and I just move on, looking for that something that's more like aligned for me.
Yeah.
But I don't process this pain, the heartbreak.
Yeah, I would add some other stuff.
You don't think that
work on some stuff and
You don't think that it's going to show up and bite me in the ass if I don't process the heartbreak?
Of course it will. I think absolutely you need to process. Yeah, and that's what I think people miss from that. And I don't know if you're missing it or you're trying to point it out for other people to not miss that. But for sure, like there is a process you need to, and we talked about this for the first, I feel like 30 minutes of this podcast, but hearing what's coming up for you, accepting it, loving it, understanding it's communicating with you. What is it trying to tell you? That in your work, in your world, in IFS, there's different parts. We can go, maybe that's episode number 6. Right, which is parts work, and we can like really dive into your world and how you kind of view with that lens. But yes, that is the first step. The first step is awareness, love, understanding what is coming up for me. Why is it coming up for me? And in some respect, you can also add the same spiritualistic concept of like, this is good, that this is coming up for me.
We can hold a few truths.
Yeah, few truths at the same time.
Yes, we can hold a few truths. My only point is to not bypass, to not bulldoze any of those truths, because they're all your truths.
And they can all be good. That's the point.
And they can also be bad, and that's okay.
But also bad is good, because it's a human experience.
Sure. Yeah. But when it's bad, you feel bad, and that's okay.
Yes, that's good.
No, do you see how it sounds?
Yes. And this is good.
If it's bad, it's good. But if it's bad, it's also bad.
Yes, and being able to accept the badness, being able to sit in the difficulty is good for you.
Yeah, it's the right thing.
It's good.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
That's my point. Everything is good.
Everything is good, but sometimes it feels bad, and you should feel into that.
Absolutely, you should. And if you do that, it's good for you.
Yes, but if you do it with the agenda,
no, of course,
it's not
the
good.
And so this gets us to episode number 7, which actually should be like in the beginning, but this is the Abraham Esther Hicks. I think I would like to do like a whiteboard session at some point. We can kind of like,
if you bring a whiteboard, we can put it here.
Okay, yeah, right, totally. I'm on board with that. But yeah, that's what I would like to show. So you're right. So I think like, if we back up for a second, we say, okay, what's the intention behind it? And that's where we started this conversation. If the intention is to work through, to get through it, you're going to fail, because that would be bypassing, and that would be invalidating, because your body knows. This is why I saw on another podcast somewhere or something. I forget where I saw this exactly, but this lady goes like, this is why. Are you familiar with muscle testing?
Yeah.
And the whole, okay, episode number 8. The whole muscle testing concept is that your body doesn't lie. That's a really cool part. That's why a polygraph test works, because you can say whatever you want, but the machine will read your heart rate, your beats per minute. It will read your bodily responses.
Some people can control that as well.
Some people, it's like a 99% accuracy.
Yeah.
So there's some people, okay, but anything that's 99 point something, let's use that. You have a high dose of skepticism, which I like. I appreciate. But if we're in the 99 point something, okay.
Why I'm saying it is because people can lie to themselves in such an extreme way that they will believe their lies.
Maybe, potentially. But I think they, deep down in their soul, they know the truth.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's why the FBI and cases and judges and everyone uses polygraph tests, because it works.
Yeah.
It works. And even if you do lie to yourself so much, in my mind, is considered a limiting belief. It's a limitation. It's thinking we can't do something.
I see it as a manipulation of a part to get your need met.
Agreed. And it's the opposite. Agreed. And it's the opposite of a truth. And a truth would be an empowering belief.
But that is also a truth, that you're manipulating yourself.
It is. It is. And I think just to get back to what we were saying earlier, I think our bodies know the truth. Okay. And our body's communicating with us, being thankful and understanding what it's trying to communicate, be loving for it. And if you try to bypass it, your body's going to know, hey, you're doing this just to get through it. And so I'm in agreement with you. I would just like to add that if you're able to sit with what comes up, really sit with it. And by the way, that's so hard. Yes. It is so hard and to reflect how difficult that is, look at all the coping mechanisms we've created. We've got TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. We'll be posting all 3, by the way. YouTube, Netflix, sports, music. I mean, there's a lot and some of them are healthy, some of them are not so healthy, coping mechanisms that we've created. And I would argue a lot of them is so that we don't sit with these quote unquote painful emotions. Yeah. So I agree that it's difficult. I would just like to add that when you do sit with those, when you are in that place of accepting what's coming up in a loving way that's not in resistance to the present moment and not in resistance to the human experience, then that is a good thing for you, because ultimately that will feel good for your body. It will feel good for your parts of you and for your body to know, hey, Jonathan is here for me.
Yeah, I'm doing the hard
I'm
thing.
doing the hard thing, and that feels good. So, and it's not to get past it. It's not to not feel those unpleasant things, but knowing that that's good for you, it also provides people a sense of motivation. It's like, why? Why would I do this, Rachel? This is hard. Look at all the coping mechanisms we set up. You're telling me to sit here with myself? Go screw yourself. Why would I do this?
It's like ending a situationship
Yeah.
when you know the person is not right for you, but you're crushing on them big time, and it feels good to be with them. And so when you cut it off, you're like, it doesn't feel good. You want to be close to this person. You want to be feeling what you're feeling. You want
Right.
it to be even more.
Right.
But you identify, okay, that's not the right person for me, and then you cut it off, and then there's like an inner war going on. Like, okay, it was the right thing to do, so why doesn't it feel right? You know. But after that emotional turbulence, you know you did the right thing, and then it feels good. Then, not at the moment, you know. And again, it can be different for different people. But yeah, doing the right thing for you that progresses you to your higher values, it is the right thing. It is what I believe we should follow in life. Like if something is not aligned with a value that I have, for example, for community, moving to a secluded area that doesn't align with my value of community, it's driving me away from it. So I won't do it, you know.
So yeah, just to summarize, your point is your goal is to always do what feels right and good. And
no, sometimes you do things that don't feel good,
right,
like ending something that you don't want it to end.
but
But
why
there
would
is
you
a
do that?
higher
Right.
value. Like if I want a relationship,
right.
I'm not gonna be here with someone that's made it very clear that it doesn't.
Right.
So it won't feel good to end it because parts of me want to be in a relationship with them, and it's gonna hurt like hell. But me seeing what's good for me and progressing me in the direction of being in a relationship, that will feel good eventually.
Yeah, I think you're so quick to you're very sensitive to the bypassing part, but I think what I'm trying to summarize is you're doing it because ultimately it's going to feel good for you,
and the entire experience is good to have, because that will sharpen your values, your strength to say no, your boundaries. You know, it will give you power. It's empowering. It just not necessarily feels good at the same moment, but it is good.
Yeah. All right, cool. A lot of good stuff. Wow. All right. Podcast 3 in the books.
That's perfect.
Yeah, she's passed out. That's great.
This is what can be. Like, she just needs like a baby.
All right. Thanks all for joining. See you next week.